Hello and welcome again to Money Tips. This is Charles Kelly bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate and enjoy more money. Thanks for everyone tuning in on Facebook Live. Great to see you all, and I hope that you keep those comments coming. Really appreciate that. And thanks for people who tune in on my podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, which is Money Tips Podcast, and you can also find blogs on moneytipsdaily.com. Great to see you all. So I've said there in the headline that a famous British model was declared bankrupt yesterday. She was apparently worth 45 million at the height of her fame. She's been around since, the late 80s, 90s. She was very, very famous on page 3 of The Sun every week. Earned a fortune in her lifetime, married to was with a footballer who abandoned her and left her with a disabled child to look after. Any idea who she is? Okay, I'm sure you've guessed it if you're in the UK. It was all over the papers. It's Katie Price, who was formerly Jordan, the model, who's famous for going on Celebrity, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, Peter Andre, they got together. Do you remember that? Yeah, that famous love match. I think they got married. They split up. She's been married several times. And yeah, it's sad to see that she's reached this stage. She's obviously got her issues and many problems in her life. But she was apparently on a train the other day, and the Sun reported that she was ranting about her going bankrupt. She was drinking wine from a can, which doesn't look great, does it, in the daytime, drinking wine out of a can, and swearing about going bankrupt. I don't care, I don't effing care, and I'd rather do that than pay the effing HMRC, which is the tax people here, HMRC, the Inland Revenue. And what it is, she'd come to some arrangement called an IVA, Individual Voluntary Arrangement. I've talked about this before, which is like a halfway house towards bankruptcy, but you're not actually bankrupt. And it means they come to an arrangement with your creditors, and then you will pay off a certain amount of the debt, not all of it, but you must keep up to that strict payment terms. Otherwise, they then declare you bankrupt and they go for complete bankruptcy and take all of your assets then. And it takes time for you to be discharged. This means that a receiver or an administrator will be controlling all of her money now. She won't be able to open bank accounts and have credit cards. It's going to be a difficult time for her. And then you read that she's split up with her current boyfriend. So things are not looking good. And she's got a disabled son, as many people know. Now, so what it is, I mean, the clue comes there in this thing about I'm not going to pay. I think she's mentioned a figure of $2,500 to HMRC. It's better that I go bankrupt. Well, maybe not, but usually these arrangements are over a 3-year period. So $2,500, $3,000 a year, 3 years, £9,000. That's what she would have to pay the tax man. Where if she goes bankrupt, she could lose a lot more in the long run. But a lot of people get into trouble with their tax affairs. They earn money in one big lump. Unlike employed people who just pay tax as they go along, a lot of people earn money, millions in 1 year, and then spend it and not think about the tax. I mean, Will Smith spoke about this, and I've mentioned this in my book many times. The stars who've lost it all in Money Can Buy You Happiness. People like Nicolas Cage, Mike Tyson, who earned 300 million in his career, and now he's appearing on celebrity game shows to try and make some money. He's been declared bankrupt more than once, I think. Johnny Depp earned $600 million in his career, and somehow has managed to spend it all. I don't know where it's gone, and he doesn't seem to know where it's gone either. But I'll come back to that. And sometimes you can take these figures with a pinch of salt because they're only estimated figures. For instance, Robert Maxwell, who was the publishing baron who bought the Daily Mirror, he was listed in the Sunday Times rich list regularly as being a billionaire worth billions. And then he was suddenly bankrupt. And it turned out that, yes, he had assets worth billions, but it was all mortgaged up to the hilt. So he wasn't really a billionaire, although he lived this billionaire lifestyle with cars and helicopters and boats and that sort of thing. But he famously then raided the pension fund of the Daily Mirror to try and shore things up. and he was seen in casinos running 3 casino tables at once, trying to win back money to cover debts, and of course he lost it all. And the last we heard of him, he fell off a boat somewhere in the Mediterranean. Was he assassinated? Did he commit suicide? We don't know. Then there was his 2 sons who managed to still have houses in Chelsea despite so-called being bankrupt. And now his daughter appears. I can't remember her first name, Luzanne Maxwell, and she's tied up in this affair with Prince Andrew and the American guy that his name's gone now. The American guy who died in prison. She's tied up, so his legacy goes on, if you like. But so I would take some of the figures with a pinch of salt. I mean, was Katie Price worth 40 million? We don't really know. People guess at these things. And you might think, where can they spend it? But that could be you're also part of mindset. You know, how did someone spend 500 million? Well, it's the same thing as saying, well, how can somebody earn 500 million? And these things can be done. Just the more you earn, the more you can spend. You can buy bigger cars, bigger yachts, more houses. Many of these stars, like Nicolas Cage, had several properties. Robin Williams had several properties, and he was trying to sell off his properties when he committed suicide. Maybe he just couldn't face it anymore. But there's a whole heap of more stories about that in this book. And it's quite sad when they do fall. And what I say is that, you know, I can give you a few tips here on things. Like in the book, I talk about money, power and beliefs, and, you know, why money matters, lifestyles of the rich and famous, you know, what it is we think about money, how we feel about money. Why is it that, you know, you get a pay rise, instead of saving it, you just spend more? And every time more money comes in, we just tend to spend more money, and we're almost back to square one. Even people who've won the lottery have ended up blowing it all, you know, because they can't handle that money. They just want to be where they were. Then in part 3, we talk about how to manage your money. These are the 3R money formula, the 3 R's of money management, smart money management system, and how money can buy you happiness. Now, I would say to people like Katie Price, Nicolas Cage, Johnny Depp, this is what I would say, is follow these formulas so that you are managing your own money. Don't let somebody else just manage your money and, you know, without you knowing about it. Because a lot of stars lose money because their accountants are managing it. They don't realise what's coming in, what's going out. Sometimes they're ripped off, like many of the pop stars were ripped off by management, like Blondie, for instance. But sometimes it's just pure mismanagement. I was talking recently to someone who knew the famous record producer Mickey Most, who's now dead. But Mickey Most had a company called Rack Records, and he was like the Stockaken and Waterman of his day, or the Motown hit factory. He just had hit after hit after hit, and bands like Mud and the Sweets and you know, many others, like you know, Hot Chocolate, were in his stable. And he had a formula songwriting team and a production team. He knew how to produce a hit record. And he said that what a lot of bands would do, they would get an advance on a record deal. So they'd say, right, we'll give you £100,000 or £500,000 advance, and then they would spend all of that, and then they would come back and say, where's my money? And he said, he cited Mud, the band Mud, who had loads of #1 hits in the 70s. They, Tiger Feet and all that sort of thing. And he said Mud would just blow all their advance and then come, where's my money? Oh, I ain't got any money. I need money. You're ripping me off, you know. So it's down to managing your own money at the end of the day. Don't, even if you've got an accountant, make sure that you know what you're signing, you know what's going on. Like when you sign a tax form, when I was in business, you sign tax forms, VAT, tax returns for companies. You look down and the accountant's prepared it and said, right, these are all correct, you sign it. But at the bottom it says, who's responsible? Me. I'm responsible, not the accountant. If he screws up, then I'm the one going to be investigated and fined, and then the accountant would charge me to represent me at a tribunal. So you make sure that you know what you're signing, and make sure that you are really up to date, and you're really on top of the situation, that you're not just letting somebody else deal with it. Then the other thing is you've got to pay your tax. Don't, the HMRC are famous for making people bankrupt. They go after you. They go after from the jugular. They go after you, and they'll never stop, and they can always find you. So make sure you pay your tax bills, and if you can't pay your tax bills, you shouldn't be taking luxury holidays and driving luxury cars. Pay your tax first, then you can have the luxuries afterwards. And the other thing is, finally, is to choose your partners wisely. This is important in life, in marriage partners and life partners, as well as business partners, because, partners, as was happening to Katie Price, she's had the wrong kind of guys in her life. She claims they've ripped her off. I don't know if that's true. I can think of lots of other people, Barbara Windsor, Diana Dawes, there's more recent women celebrities that were ripped off by their partners. I can think of that. There's a few people that have made a lot of money and then lost it through their partners mismanaging their money. Neil Sedaka, of course, is famous. His mother had a boyfriend that ripped off all of his money from his early years of earnings after making millions of dollars from those hits in the 60s. So choose your partners wisely. Are you compatible with that person on a spending level? If you're a saver and someone who's careful with your money, and your partner is a spender and blows every penny, then there's going to be a conflict there, isn't there? And there's always going to be arguments about money. In my family, there's a lot of arguments about money, and I think a lot of it was because my mum was a saver, she was more careful. My dad was a spender. He liked to spend money and gamble on the horses and that sort of thing, have fun. He didn't think about tomorrow and saving money and investing money. My mum wanted to buy her property in the early days when they were really cheap, and he didn't want to do that. He said, what do you want to do that for? You'd have to repair it yourself and that sort of thing. So you've got to have a compatible situation with your partner, not just because they're good looking, but maybe check out their philosophy on money. So that's a good question on your first date. What's your philosophy on money? How do you feel about saving money? How do you feel about spending money? Actually, women do do a bit of delving into your money, don't they? But maybe it's a good question to find out what the other person's philosophy on money is, and are they a spender? Are they a saver? Do they have a pension? Do they believe in pensions? Do they believe in buying properties? Because if you have a partnership where that you gel together, you don't have to be exactly the same, but if you have the right philosophy, you have the right plans and targets with money, and you sit down and plan your money and know what's coming in and what's going out, then that can lead to a very successful partnership in business and in life, because then you're on the same track, you're on the same wavelength, there's less conflict, and you can still enjoy life, you can still have fun, but you are keeping on top of your money, and that's important. And that's where a lot of the stars that have gone bust have gone wrong, because they've had the wrong partners in life and in business and in management. So there you go. Check out my book on Amazon. Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness. It's a twist on the word money can buy you happiness. A lot of people think money can't buy you happiness. I know it can. And I know that when you haven't got money, you're not very happy. So there you go. So thanks for listening. Thanks for everyone. Hi to everyone on Facebook Live. And thanks for listening on my podcast, Charles Kelly Money Tips Daily. And thanks again on Facebook Live. I can see, I'll just say hello to a few people. Alan, Jeffrey, thanks, another Jeffrey there. Neil, Marilyn, Dave, an old school friend there. Hi, Dave. Alan, Neds, and Jan from Paris there. Hi, Jan. Good to see you. Hope you're taking those great photos still. And lovely to see you all. And I'll leave it at that. Let you get on with your day. Keep looking after your money. Keep managing your money. Don't let somebody else do it. Even if you employ an accountant, make sure that you know exactly what's going on and you're on top of the figures. And never sign a tax form without knowing what you're signing. If you don't understand it, say, I don't understand it. Explain it to me. That's what they're bloody there for. You've got to say to your accountant, well, I don't understand these figures. What are you doing here? And we used to do that in business, and the accountant would have to come in and explain it or tell you on the phone why they were doing that. And we'd question things, and sometimes they'd backpedal and say, well, maybe, okay, we can do that. So you've got to question the accountant. You're employing them, and your neck is on the line if you sign those forms and they're incorrect, or the revenue, the HMRC, Uncle Sam in America, Internal Revenue, if they find you've lied on a form, you're in big trouble. They'll go after you, and they'll dig into all of your affairs for the last 5 years, and it's painful. If you have a tax investigation, and every so often they will investigate you on tax, they'll pull up your file, just a random thing, then it's very difficult. Now, of course, if you're on an employed person on PAYE, your tax is deducted at source. You don't have a lot to worry about. You're never going to probably fill in a tax return unless you're paying tax at higher rates. But if you ever do fill in any of these sort of official forms, mortgage forms, tax forms, loan forms, always, never lie on these forms, because it can come back to bite you and haunt you. And make sure that you understand what you're signing. When I was in financial services, we'd fill in 20, 30 page forms, maybe mortgage forms, and people would just sign them. So sign here, yeah, there you go. They wouldn't even read it. They wouldn't understand what they were doing. Now there was I've seen an advert today from somebody who's saying if you've had an interest-only mortgage, you might be able to claim compensation. So it's like this PPI scandal. They're saying if someone's had an interest-only mortgage, they've probably not been advised properly, and therefore you might be able to claim compensation from your lender. Now, to me, people probably did understand what they were doing. Maybe they forgot about it later on and then realised that at the end of the term, the mortgage wasn't going to be paid off, because that's what an interest-only mortgage is. You only pay interest only. The clue is in the title. So if you're only paying interest on your mortgage, you're not paying back the capital or the principal. So there will be, coming soon, I think, there'll be another sort of PPI style scandal where people will be claiming, well, I didn't know what an interest only mortgage was, therefore I want my money back, that sort of thing. So anyway, I'm just diverging there by saying make sure you understand what is on your forms when you sign them. So thanks very much for listening, and have a great day.